Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Talmbout Rasslin right here on the Black Phoenix Network. I'm your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. Well, it is another Saturday and another time here with your host. First of all, thank y'all again for tuning in to another edition. Thank y'all for tuning in last week. Thank you for tuning in to all the Black Phoenix Network content. I tried something different with What's Up Wednesday this week. I did a video instead of a written version. I intended to do a written version, but the way my life was set up, the whole thing behind it, so I didn't get to do it. But I did give you the video. And I'm still looking for feedback on that. If you like doing the video format versus the reading format, I might try to do more of those. But if you want me to stick to strictly reading, I can do that, and maybe I'll do something else with that kind of content. I don't know. I liked how it came out, but maybe I have to do that for something else and not the actual What's Up Wednesdays. So I don't know. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about wrestling. What we're here for. But again, just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, engage. You can follow me here on Substack. You can follow me on YouTube. You can find Black Phoenix. It's Black Phoenix brand on YouTube, but Talking About Wrestling should be there as well. Also, you can follow me on Spotify. Talking About Wrestling is now available on Spotify as well. You can catch me there as well. Make sure you check me out on all platforms. Make sure you comment, rate, like, share, subscribe, tell somebody. Engage. We want to build this platform as much as possible. I want to reach as many of you as I can. So again, thank you for that. Before we get into today's show, of course, like I said, I'm starting the new thing that I'm starting is, of course, my not a fit check, but my shirt of the week, if you want to call it that. Didn't technically do it last week, but I did because you got the full body shot when Rey Mysterio showed up. So there's that. But for this week, because I'm not doing that, we're gonna pull this out. So I'm gonna slide back. You look. Okay. Boom. See if I can get the back. Boom. So, little backstory here, if you can tell what this is. This is actually from WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, which second Mania? No, yeah, second Mania that I went to. Was it Dallas? It was Dallas. First one was in Houston. So yeah, second Mania that I went to. And I got this. This is actually the Undertaker versus Shane McMahon shirt. So, for those that know and those that care, WWE used to be a lot better with merch, I think. A lot more creative, a lot less corporate since they went to Fanatics. So they used to do these like hybrid logo type shirts for the matches at Mania. They still kind of do something like that here and there. They're more just like matchup shirts, but they used to be a little more creative. Now they just had like who's in the match kind of thing, but they used to have like these matched logos. So there's obviously Undertaker, Shane McMahon. You got the Taker symbol and the dollar sign. If you know, of course, money is my rap name. So of course, anything with a dollar sign on it, I'm for. And again, just always love the design of the shirt. The match itself was but the shirt was definitely fire. So any shirt like that, I like. I don't have many of them, but I've always liked to see when they did that. And I wish they would do it again, but they do not. So, no, not as much, or not as much, and not the same way. So, if you know me, you know that I'm a fan of that type of thing, and that is, I had to have that one. There were others, I think. There was there's the Brock Lesnar Dean Ambrose one, which was like the Suplex City sign that he had with Dean Ambrose's logo spray painted on it, basically. I'm pretty sure there was one with Roman and Triple H. I think those were the three big matches because I don't think they did a Y2J and AJ Styles one. Sting didn't have a match. He retired, so there was that. Well, not retired, but he was Hall of Fame. Um, so yeah, so that's the story behind this week's shirt of the week. I might need to do a graphic for that, but I don't know if it's that serious. But nonetheless, that's what's this week's shirt of the week. WWE, step your game up. I don't even know why I'm even wasting time because they're not corporate synergy. Um, so we're gonna talk as we typically do about some AEW. There may be WWE stuff in there that we can kind of talk about. CM Punk is your world heavyweight champion. Well, I could go over my Saturday night main event. I want to say probably went exactly how I thought. I think I predicted Cody winning. He won. The world heavyweight title match was all I was waffling on, but I figured it would be Punk. I don't know if that was my official prediction, but I figured he would win. Um, Jade, of course, won the women's championship, as figured she would, because they had to cement that heel turn, of course. And Dom Mysterio retained the Intercontinental Championship. Exactly what I figured it would be. There was no shock. I didn't think there would be a shock. I mean, I guess you could say it's noteworthy for Jade winning her first WWE champion, or her first, WWE Women's Championship, and Punk finally winning the World Heavyweight Championship for longer than like 10 minutes, or however long he had it at SummerSlam. You know how I feel about CM Punk. You know, I really couldn't give a, well, you know. Um, so there's that. Again, you know how I am with this company. Triple H was just in. They were just. Well, I don't even know where he made this comment too, but he just made like some statement praising the orange for being whatever, and I'm like, yeah, this company is basically gone to the orange side, red side, MAGA side. I don't care, whatever. So that just makes it that much more difficult. Um, Call me when Bianca's back, and even then, I'm watching from afar. I hate it because y'all know how I love my girl, man. I love my girl, but the company she works for is blase. Not even blase. It's the product isn't great, which it typically this time of year is actually not any. I mean, people are making a big deal about it, but truth be told, WWE's never hot um, around this time of year anyway. So that's not even really anything of note if we're being honest. That's just typically what happens towards the end of the year. It heats up around the Rumble time. Rumble's gonna come. We're gonna feel like they're cooking again, maybe, because if last year was any indication, it seemed like they were gonna be cooking, but like heading up to Mania, it was kind of like, nah, not really, not really. Uh, so um, interesting to see where they go for Mania. I mean, I think then we'll get a little more clear, um, a clearer view of where we're going or what we're doing. Right now, it just seems like they're kind of just middling and muddling around. So maybe we'll have a clearer vision of what's going to happen um, come Rumble time. But for the rest of 2025, you can hang it up, baby. It's going to be mediocre and blah, you know. But that's that. Um, it's not even news, but like, and it doesn't matter if you're watching from wherever you're watching from. But I just saw the advertisement today that Raw is apparently coming in, which I'm halfway shocked that I don't know this because they usually announce these kind of things long before they become announced on the FedEx Forum, Instagram, or anything like that. But again, I guess I'm not as in the loop as I have been before. Apparently, WWE Raw, oddly enough, is coming in February. I want to say maybe the 12th or something crazy like that. Probably around Elimination Chamber time. It might be. I think Rumble's probably back in January this time, so maybe Elimination Chamber esque time. That's usually the point in time that they come in the year, and it's only once a year, and it's usually like in the beginning times before. They may come twice here and there. Um, but even then, not really. I think the last WWE event I went to was prior to 40 last year. It was the SmackDown when The Rock came. I'm gonna wear that shirt one of these weeks because I hadn't worn it anywhere else, and I probably won't. Um, and threatened. It was he just had a little segment. Um, so uh, they're coming for Raw, and I don't even know the last time they were here for Raw, but I have no interest. I have no interest in coming and going to see the. Hey, the tickets are. I ain't even looked at them, and I don't know if they're available or not. But I know they're gonna be high, and they're gonna get higher as it goes. But I don't care. I don't care to go. I have no interest in attending the WWE event. Period. At best, if Bianca was back and she was on Raw, maybe, but I highly doubt that. So I mean, and I keep mentioning all this Bianca stuff because I'm like Bianca is kind of in the news as well. Um, they're expecting her probably back before the end of the year, or at least to be ready for the end of the year because she's been gone since Mania. Because apparently uh, her finger injury was a lot worse than expected than they thought it would be. And I saw a picture of it, and I was like, "Who?" Like that thing was like I didn't even know Knuckles did that. So that's there's that. But she'll be back eventually, and when she's back, I don't know if we're fast tracking towards Bianca versus Jade and Mania because I think it's this weird thing with Jade, right? For me at least. And again, I don't know how deep I've gotten into how I kind of feel about Jade. Jade's cool, right? Love to see her, you know, doing what she does, is the best way I can put it. But there's not much on the table that I care to see for real. And the biggest thing that everybody wants to see and has wanted to see, the biggest dream match since she showed up, was Bianca versus Jade. So we got that face off at the Rumble last year. We got them teaming up at Mania instead of going. I mean, and that I didn't know. I don't know if anybody factored Naomi into the mix, but that was a good look, right? And then we got the Naomi Jade feud. All right, cool. Now Naomi's gone, so we're not gonna get any Naomi Bianca stuff like we thought we would. I mean, there wasn't even enough time between because, like I said, well, after Mania, she was hurt and she didn't show back up. So there's that. She popped up here and there, and so now Jade's a heel. Bianca more than likely will come back as a babyface, and we could build to that match. But it's also like, but if we don't build, if we decide to hold off on that, what else could Jade do? Assuming she'll still be champion. I saw maybe somebody book like her and Rhea. I don't know who would want to see that. If she stays on SmackDown, maybe there's some options, but there aren't a lot on SmackDown right now. So, like, what would you do with Jade for Mania? Charlotte? Don't want Charlotte anywhere else near the title picture. I feel like Bianca is kind of the no-brainer, but if they decide to go in a different direction and try to hold off on that to like Saudi Arabia or something, maybe that because see now you have to think about that kind of thing. What are they going to do with this Mania when they know they're going to Saudi Arabia and it needs to be huge in Saudi Arabia? You know, would they hold off on that match for that? Because there's nobody else. Do they think of Bianca as a big enough deal and that as a big enough dream match to have it there? Or would they try to hold it off for like a Saudi Arabia and or maybe put Charlotte there because that's the bigger, that's their draw. Or Rhea, maybe the Rhea Jade thing. I don't know. I think all of those things are on the table, but I don't know if any of those will actually be Mania matches. Some of the stuff you got to do for SummerSlam, maybe. So you got some time. So I mean, yeah, figure that out. Got myself a little beverage. Got myself a little something, That is deliciously strong and tropical. So that's my WWE spiel. I can't believe I spent that much time on it, to be perfectly honest with you. But there we go. Yeah, I can't believe I spent that much time on it. But we can move on because there are other things to talk about. AEW has some stuff to talk about, and that's probably going to be the bulk of this show. as it usually is. But hey, can't say I did not touch WWE news. And there's probably more, but I'm not there right now. We're going to talk about a little bit of Dynamite, a little bit of not really much of Collision, not much happened, but there was some things that happened there that spilled into Dynamite and tells where we're going also for next week, big week. So, I don't even know where to start. I'll tell you what, I'll start with this because one of the things I know I mentioned last week, and I know I did a shorter episode last week, this won't be that. But one of the things I mentioned from last week was that they hadn't announced the women's teams for Blood and Guts yet, which was strange. And I was just reading up on that a minute ago before I started recording, and I saw like that initial challenge came in September. They just announced the teams November 1st. So you went a whole month. And it wasn't like they were working on the teams. Like and when you hear what the teams are, it almost doesn't make sense. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It's kind of like, so, well, what happened here? You know. So, and then by waiting so long, then now the matches have become strange because of, I guess, the wait to do. I don't know. I don't know if we had to wait for the venue. I'm not sure what happened there, but we finally do have teams for Blood and Guts, and they're kind of what I thought. They kind of were all the versions of what I thought it was, which is really strange. So I also mentioned the first thing that I didn't even think we were going to do a men's one. So I guess we're doing two. The show apparently has been confirmed to be like 30 minutes longer, which isn't much longer than like their overrun. But if the time is like, but if they're going off at 9:30 Central, and the overrun, it'll probably run to like 9:45ish or something to that effect. So they're gonna have plenty of time to cook because that was kind of gonna be a thing. Like, so are you just gonna have like those two matches and maybe a segment in between? So it probably will be like those two matches. And apparently, we're doing Hangman and Powerhouse Hobbs in the Falls Count Anywhere match as well. So that's probably gonna be the buffer in between. That's loaded though. If you're gonna have like two Blood and Guts matches and your champion in a match, a Falls Count Anywhere match with somebody like Powerhouse Hobbs, that's a loaded show for just those three matches, and then anything else you decide to throw in there. So I also recall mentioning like they're doing this like in the midst of this tag team tournament. It's like there's so much stuff kind of piling on top of each other. So the teams are okay. So the teams are. I'm starting with the heel team. Okay. Triangle of Madness, of course, like I've always said. Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and Tekla. Megan Bain, like I've always said. And who I said would be there would be Penelope Ford. That side always seemed to make sense, right? Penelope got hurt. So instead, she wasn't able to participate in the tag team tournament. Who replaces her in the tag team tournament with Megan Bain? Marina Shafir. Cool. But my thought was like, so does that extend to Blood and Guts as well? Yes. Yes, it does. So, in Blood and Guts, Marina Shafir will be taking the place that Penelope Ford was supposed to have. And also on that team, Mercedes Moné. Okay. All right. Because she wasn't involved in the trial. She's been adjacent, but she hadn't been involved. On the babyface side, you have Jamie Hayter, made sense. Willow Nightingale, kind of figured. Harley Cameron, makes a lot of sense. Mina Shirakawa, which kind of makes sense, but I'll get to why it's strange also afterwards. Chris Statlander and Toni Storm. So we're doing 6-on-6 for the women. Notice I did not say Queen Amanada because apparently Queen Amanada was hurt, and that's why Mina is now in the match. Now, Mina made sense from the jump because a lot of time with these triangular madness and uh, Megan Bain, Penelope Ford beatdowns, Mina would be the one to come out. Toni Storm has had her run-ins, so has Chris Statlander. So I saw somebody make a post somewhere that said like it feels like it's just happening, kind of like just because it has to happen, and they feel like they just threw a bunch of stuff together or threw a bunch of people in the match to make it star-studded. That's not actually the case. If you've been paying attention, they all have kind of the only person here who's like out of place is Marina Shafir because they've all interacted. Actually, Mina's come out to face the Triangle of Badness. Toni Storm has as well because I'm pretty sure she's went up against like Tekla or something or somebody at some point. So like they've had run-ins. There was Tekla and Toni Storm. I don't know if they had a one-on-one match, but Tekla was in that four-way where Toni lost the belt. So they had their run-in there. And of course, you had some Triangle of Madness stuff in there too. So I mean, of course, Harley's been battling with them all the time. Willow as well. Stat has had a few run-ins here and there, not as many, but she's had some. Like I said, so that makes sense. Mercedes, even there's a time where she teamed with Julia Hart and Sky Blue, if I'm not mistaken, and she was kind of like, oh yeah, I want to be part of the sisters, the sisters of sin or trying, whatever. So she's done that before too. So she's teamed with them. She's has history with everybody on that side. Hayter, Willow, Harley, Toni, Mina, Stat. She got history with everybody on that side, so it makes perfectly good sense. It's just it's strange that we waited so long to do it. Then now people have gotten hurt who were integral to it. Aminata is integral to this. Not even integral, but it like kind of literally started with her. It started with her and Tekla. And it grew from there. So that's kind of one of those strange things that happens. But, injuries happen, right? I still think it's going to be great. I don't think it's thrown together like a lot of people are saying. It's just unexpected that they did that. Also, because the tag team tournament is going on, this is the only people missing here is like Ty J. Because they I don't know. Because I thought they would have been in it and Blood and Guts makes sense, but who knows? But since we got the tag team tournament going on as well, so now you have the teams that were there were. See, now I don't know. Well, never mind. It doesn't matter because they lost. I was going to say you had Jamie Hayter and Aminata who were in the tournament, but now Aminata's out, so that doesn't matter. Willow and Harley in the tag tournament. Toni and Mina still in the tag team tournament. Stats not, of course. Sky Blue and Julia Hart still in the tournament. Megan Bain and Marina Shafir still in the tournament. Mercedes was in the tournament. I'll get to that in a minute. So you have a large portion of the women who are in that tournament as well still in the Blood and Guts match as well. And Mercedes and Willow and Harley just had their match for the tournament. Jamie Hayter and Aminata would be facing or just faced Julia Hart and Sky Blue last week. So again, it's not thrown together because everybody's interacting. This is like, again, we talk about AEW's women's division. They pretty much have taken the entire division, the entire women's division, and threw them into this match, which is fine. You threw your world champion, you threw your TBS champion, pretty much all of your tag team contenders. You pretty much threw your entire women's division into this match. Not the entire, but your main names. There are obviously some people who aren't involved, but everybody that could be, your women's division take place in this match. So that's cool. It's gonna be cool. 6-on-6. was an interesting take, but I kind of get why you would do that. You want to get it first ever. You want to get everybody as many people as you can in there, I guess, to make sure it's star studded. I get it, because if you did it off the mid card without like a Stat or Mercedes or Tony, but those are the three people I didn't think would necessarily be there. I thought for a second about Tony, but I wasn't sure. Everybody else, and the Marina, of course. Everybody else I kind of figured would be there. So, glad that they finally announced the teams. And they just announced it. It wasn't like, oh, we're recruiting, or, they just kind of announced it as a thing. And so, again, a lot of it, and it had the longer build. Because this men's match, I felt kind of came out of nowhere. If anything, the women's match I thought had the build. The men's match is like, what? And if you don't know, I mentioned before, the men's match is Darby, Roderick Strong, and the conglomeration, Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Kyle O'Reilly, versus the Death Riders, Mox, Claudio, Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, Pat. I mean, it kind of makes sense because of what's been going on with Mox and Kyle O'Reilly. But like, and I guess Orange Cassidy, I guess they've all been interacting, but it feels kind of out of nowhere. Mark Briscoe is kind of torn between, like, he's still trying to do TNT title stuff with Kyle Fletcher. So I don't know what's going on there. But hey, still gonna be good. I don't want that. I think the women should main event. If you're gonna do this, I think men should open, even though it probably be the more violent if you have Mox involved and Darby involved. So it probably should main. I don't know. They probably will main event, but I would love for the women to main event that, because it's the more, despite how it's been announced and how it's been handled, I think it's the match that has the better build than the men's. But whatever. So that's next week. Happy to see it happen. But that plays into what actually happened on this week's Dynamite. They did a very interesting thing that I haven't seen done. An interesting way to do the advantages. In WCW, when it was War Games, it just used to be a coin toss. And WWE WWE, just for anything, is always good with finding ways to figure out how does somebody get an advantage, or how does somebody get, the advantageous spot. And it's usually just a match. AEW took it up another notch, and now there's a series of matches. So they call it the Blood and Guts Advantage Battle. And what it was basically, on both matches, there were three sets of matches set. And the best out of those three would go on to get the advantage for their respective match. So for the men, the first match you had Orange Cassidy versus Claudio. Second match was Darby Allin and Daniel Garcia. And the third match, if necessary, if you know any playoffs in any sport, then you know what that means. If necessary, then Roderick Strong versus Jon Moxley. On the women's side, it was supposed to be Aminata versus Megan Bayne, which will now be Mina versus Megan Bayne. That was on Dynamite. Where was okay. Yeah, I did watch that. Okay. And on Collision, there will be Jamie Hayter versus Sky Blue. And if necessary, Harley Cameron versus Tekla. So looking at these, I was like, okay, so how does this play out? When you have those two matches, you can tell they're going to do one thing here and one thing there. This is what WWE usually does since they started doing the women's. So you had Orange Cassidy versus Claudio. And I looked at it and I said, okay, so does you know you're going to get the third match. They're not going to advertise it. They're not going to run it. So you're going to get the third match. So they could do something shocking and pull like somebody just goes up 2-0 and you don't have to have a third one, but I doubt they're going to do it. So, looking at the third match, if it's Mox versus Roddy, Mox is going to win. Which means that the Death Riders would have the advantage, which always makes sense for the heels to have the advantage in those matches. Of course, Dusty will tell you that if you go back and watch. Dusty said it always made sense for the heel to have the advantage so that the babyface can come in and make the save. So Death Riders probably will have the advantage because they went, Claudio beat Orange, which I actually didn't see that coming, but it makes sense. Darby beat Daniel Garcia. And I was like, well, of those two, Darby probably will go over Daniel Garcia before Orange will go over Claudio. Like, of those two, Orange can afford to take the loss, where Darby can't necessarily, especially considering who he's going up against. So, of course, Claudio beat Orange Cassidy. Darby made Daniel Garcia tap out to the Scorpion Deathlock. So we're getting Roddy Strong and John Moxley on Collision tonight. Because I'm recording Friday, but when you watch this, it'll be Friday. So on Collision, we're going to get Mox and Roddy. I'm looking for Mox to go over. On the women's side, we had Mina versus Megan Bayne, which I had to go and look at these results because I actually don't remember who won that match. Crazy. And on Collision, we'll have Jamie Hayter versus Sky Blue, and if necessary, Harley Cameron versus Techland. Let me tell you something. If we get to match 3, it looks like we have a heels win on both sides because I can't imagine Harley pinning Tekla. Tell you that. So, I got a feeling I know who won between Mina and Megan, but I just want to make sure. Yeah. So of course Megan beat Mina. She probably would have beat Amanada too. It's Megan Bayne. They're pushing her to the moon. I think it's like only one person who's pinned her for real, and that's Tony. So now it is actually. Tony was on commentary and they mentioned that. So I'm looking for Hayter versus Sky Blue. That's a Hayter win off top. So we're definitely gonna get match 3, I think. So it looks like we're getting heat because again, Harley's not gonna beat Tekla. That's not gonna happen. So like the heels are gonna have the advantage in both matches going in. WWE usually flips it. One will have the heels with the advantage, the other one will have the babyface with the advantage. This one we'll have both heels, which makes the match work better typically for that very reason. Elsewhere on Dynamite, because I just pretty much gave half the card for Dynamite. But elsewhere, yeah, Mark Briscoe again challenging Kyle Fletcher for the TNT Championship, which I mentioned earlier. The twist on this is Don Callis. So Mark's like, you know what? We'll make it no DQ. Because you kicked me in the balls last time, so let's just take all that off the table. You ain't gotta do none of that, man. We'll make it no DQ, and whatever goes. So Kyle Fletcher's like, all right, cool, I got you. I'm with that. Don Callis is like, okay, cool. Well, I want something too. We give you this match. If you lose, you have to join the Don Callis family. I still believe that Kyle Fletcher will not be losing the TNT Championship anytime soon. But if he does, I could see it being the Mark Briscoe here because this feels like the kind of thing that they wouldn't do. But there's very interesting things that you can do. See, the point of Don Callis having this huge family, it gives you somewhat NWO vibes, but it's very different because it's intent. The size is intentional. NWO just got bloated, right? But the size of the Don Callis family is kind of the point of the family. That it's so inflated, that he has so many people in it. And I think that opens up the door to some interesting things that you can do with Mark Briscoe in the family against his will. The only downside is that the conglomeration has this new theme and video that he's very prominently part of. So again, I don't know. There's some interesting stuff I think you can do there. I feel weird. It's one of them weird things. Like I don't know if I want to do that though. But again, I think there's some very interesting things that you can pull off there. So I will wait and see. That's at Full Gear. So they were setting up Full Gear as well as Blood and Guts. And then we had a women's tag team championship match, which I completely forgot about. in the throes of blood and guts, I was like, oh yeah, we're still doing that. Forgot about that. Mercedes Moné versus Willow and Harley, which obviously was a win for Mercedes and Athena, right? No, it was not. Harley and Willow with the upset of the century. Cause I didn't think Mercedes and Athena actually were going to the final. I figured they would lose before then. And it makes perfectly good sense why when you look at the other side of the bracket, because it's like, well, Sisters of Sin beat Aminata and Jamie Hayter. It would have made sense. It wouldn't have made sense to have like two heel. I mean, I guess you could have, and I think that's an unpredictability thing. But if I were going like, well, what makes sense? Once they won, the sensible thing, if we were going babyface heel dynamics, and you're gonna stick with that, would have been for Willow and Harley to win. But they're going up against the two most dominant women's champions in both companies, if you're saying ROH and AEW. So, what? No, right? But lo and behold, and not only that, Harley got the pin on Athena. So I don't know what we're gonna do with that going forward. Athena's not in blood and guts, so yeah, I don't know. But that's gonna come back up later, I'm sure. So now we got on one side of the bracket, we have one side actually almost completed. We have, and they talk is weird about that sometimes, but we have Sisters of Sin versus Babes of Wrath coming up soon at some point. We still have the other, we had the first, I think on Collision they did Megan Bain and Marina versus it escapes me. The girl with the shiniest wizard, whose name I can't think of right now. It's actually not a real name or a new name. And her tag team partner, they pretty much squashed them. It was a decent match, but it was a bit of a squash. It's right there, but whatever. And then I thought like when Tony came out, and then Mina came out later. I thought, oh, so we're having that match too. Forgot about them having their own blood and guts advantage match. So now I'm like, oh, no, there was a lot happening. There was a lot happening on this Dynamite. People saying like it was ho hum, and it was like, no, there was a lot happening here. I don't know why anybody, whatever. So, of course, Darby wins against Danny Garcia. They brawl, of course. We got some advancement on the FTR Brodito thing, which includes like this very memeable, gifable moment of, because like FTR managed to lock Brodito in the dressing room. FTR goes to harass Bandito's family. Stokely's outside the door. Brody punches through the door. Super great visual. And they come out and make the save. So that was cool. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, Megan Bain beat Mina. And then everybody comes out. Big brawl. Whoop-de-beat. Main event was the Ops versus Hangman, Hook, and Eddie Kingston. Now, at the beginning of the night, Hangman's out in the... No. Tony Schiavone's in the ring about to make an announcement, which I'll get to in a minute. Joe and the Ops come out to confront Tony because of the shenanigans at the Halloween show with Tony Schiavone, or Hangman dressed as Tony Schiavone. So Joe's like, oh, we couldn't pound the flesh. Hangman comes out to make the save, of course. And who joins him but Hook and Eddie Kingston, who are his partners for the night. Hook challenges the Ops for the Trios Championships. Dope. And I thought, if they're going to lose, this is a chance to lose. They left something out of here. Yep, they left something out. Oh, it's not there. Okay, there it is. Okay. Anywho, so yeah, ultimately, the Ops retain. Didn't see that coming. Actually, yes, I did. I mean, I figured if they were going to lose, that'd be a cool time to lose it. But Ops retain, beat up on Hangman pretty bad, made Hook tap out. Hobbs put Hangman through a table off the stage, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what's leading us to next week with Hangman versus Hobbs, which I think is going to be a barn burner. I don't think that's the first time I recall them having a match at Daly's place. And now I'm going to Google it. Yeah, I think they had a match at Daly's. At like, it wasn't Full Gear, maybe Revolution? And that was when he was in Team Taz. Let's say 2020, let's say 2021, right? Oh, that was just a Dynamite. Oh, it's Brian Cage that I'm thinking about from that Double or Nothing. Okay. Okay. But they did have a match on a Dynamite. All right. Anywho, um, I think that's going to be a good match and definitely a palate cleanser in between, which is going to be crazy. That is going to be a violent night. Everything's going to be crazy. Blood and Guts is going to be insane. The main event, the men's one, is going to be gross, probably. And I don't know. Could be gross. And Hangman and Hobbs are going to get wild as well. It's going to be a wild night. I'm looking forward to that. The other thing here, you all know that I am an avid AEW defender. Avid AEW defender. I love it. My favorite wrestling company right now. Hands down, no doubt about it. But even I tend to have criticisms sometimes. And if I have criticisms, I think they're very valid criticisms because I'm not just on some, AEW. Like I enjoy the product. And I don't think it's a matter of being unbiased. I can look at things like, that wasn't great. Now, it's just a matter of where I land once I make said criticism, right? I say all that to say, I don't think my criticisms are more valid than anybody else's, but I think when the people who will actually enjoy the company make the criticism, then I think it can take it a little more to heart than somebody who just shits on the product just because it's not WWE. So I mentioned earlier Tony Schiavone is in the ring to make this announcement. That apparently it got announced on social media beforehand. I didn't see that, but he was going to make that announcement. Of course, all the stuff with Hangman and the Ops happened. So he comes back out later to make the announcement. The announcement is that AEW, in the tradition of NWA, is now introducing a national title so that the national title returns to TBS. And that at Full Gear, there will be a casino gauntlet match to determine the first national champion. So the thing I guess that's supposed to be special about this title is that it can be defended across brands. New Japan, CMLL, ROH. I think those are the only three they named. I'm gonna make sure. So I think those are the three brands. Um, is that in the press release? It didn't say that in the press release, but it does mention it elsewhere. Let's see where I can see if I can find out. The national title would not be exclusive to All Elite Wrestling. Khan says he's excited to see the belt defended across multiple promotions, including New Japan Strong and Ring of Honor. So, didn't say CMLL, but I imagine it would be there too because they're working together. The thing with that is, it's not like AEW championships weren't defended cross branded anyway. Like, maybe not on a regular basis, but isn't that what the international, well, the quote, the All Atlantic, which became the international championship, wasn't that what that was to begin with? That's strange. Um, so here's my thing. I I don't I've never made a big fuss about the amount of championships in AEW, but the truth of the matter is that there are a lot. Um, Wikipedia said there were 9. That's kind of true, depending on how you look at it. Okay, there's um, it's 7 or 9 is the real answer there. Now, not coming, but now. I'm gonna all right. So you got your AEW World Championship, TNT Championship, World Tag Team Championships, Trios Championships, Women's Championship, TBS Championship. I think that would be a solid slate. Okay. Um, you got a men's world, a women's world, a mid card in the TNT, a women's mid card for the TBS, a World Tag Team Championship, and a Trios Championship. At some point, Tony introduces the Continental Championship at the Continental Classic, and then he introduces the All Atlantic Championship, which is the All International Championship, and then at All In, they combine the two to make the Unified Championship. Now, according to Wikipedia, these are still 2 separate titles, and then the Unified title is, I guess, a representation of both. So technically, and I mean, they came out with all 3 titles for a while. So technically, he's all 3 champions, but okay, fine. So that's where the 7 versus 9 in the titles that they had, because you had 2 sets of men's, 2 sets of women's, 2 sets of tag, basically tag and trios, and then you had your uh the unified, either the unified or the unified, the continental, and the international. So that's where the 9 come in, 7 or 9. Then you throw in there that now we're getting ready to introduce these women's tag team championships, which takes us up to 8 or 10. I'm going to say the lower number because I consider the unified title both of those titles, but we'll see. But women's tag team titles are coming, and now you're throwing in this national championship as well. My issue is Tony has a hard time, and I'm not one of these people who says this, but I'm just gonna be honest. Tony has a hard time booking all these champions, quote unquote, correctly all at once. He does. He just does. I mean, and it's hard to do because you got so many, right? I think Hangman's doing great. Um, Kyle Fletcher's like a low key under the radar. Like you kind of forget. Like I had to think about who was the TNT champion for a minute. When I was thinking about this title. Okada as unified champion, I think works. And I think there's something you can do here because of what I thought this was going to be to begin with. But there's that. Tag team championships, kind of a lull because it seems like you can't book both. You can either book the tag team championships or you can book the trios championships, but you can't book both. And right now you're doing pretty decent because I feel like the Ops have defended it more in the last month than we've seen from anybody in like the last year or two that they've been a thing. So I guess there's that as well. Even your women division is on fire. Stat as champ is looking good. She's not defending on a regular basis, but she's she's coming into her own as champion. So I like seeing where she's going. Mercedes is so much bigger than just the TBS championship, but she's very regular on TV, so they're booking her good. The women's tag team championship is, I guess, once we get Blood and Guts out of the way, it'll all kind of settle itself out again. But I think if they keep on the trajectory that they were on leading up to this, to the tournament and Blood and Guts, I think it'll be fine. You got all the teams. People who get knocked out of the tournament, they're still creating teams that that could win. So we'll see where that goes. So where does the national championship fit? Right? Now again, I think there's a way. They're long. So here's how I think this could work. But I know they won't do this because they haven't done it yet. There's long since been the belief that, or not the belief, but the rumor that there kind of be like a soft brand split. Even since Collision started, when it was when Punk was still there, and they were like, well, the way to keep them separated is to have this new show and kind of do like a soft brand split kind of thing, which they kind of did until he left, and then they just it took them a minute to find their footing. Now it's just kind of what it is. And the idea there would be that the unified championship would kind of be the 1A of the world championship. Almost like the world heavyweight championship and the WWE championship in WWE. I think that's actually not a bad idea. Because I like to think of the unified championship as not a secondary title, but a 1A to the world title. The TNT championship is kind of the mid card. But now so even that's strange in the classifications there, because when there was international championship, it made sense. It was like, okay, well, you got international, and that's now the Intercontinental-esque workhorse title, because it was definitely getting defended like every week in bangers from Orange Cassidy. And Ospreay and anybody else that's had it was bangers. So it definitely was like the IC-esque title. And then there was the TNT championship, which was like the TV title. Now, some companies don't have like an Intercontinental in the TV or US or anything like that. The TV title is their secondary. ECW was that way. So the TNT championship for the longest was the secondary title. I think the international kind of leapfrogged it at some point. And now that it's the unified, the Continental was never really Eddie Kingston had it for a while, and then Okada had it, and he's just had it and defended it very rarely because he wasn't really doing much when he had it at first. Now that it's the unified championship, he's definitely defending it more, and he's becoming a little more active. I think the unified championship is a very much leveled up version of both of those titles, just not defended on a weekly basis the way that like the international was. But it has leapfrogged the TNT as well. So I think there's space for the national, especially considering how they're talking about bringing the national championship back to TBS. And Kyle is the TNT champion. There's space to have Kyle in the TNT championship on Collision exclusively. Okada definitely would be, but Okada's so big. I think you could have did if Kenny won that match and he had the unified championship, he would have been on Collision exclusively. I think that would have been a good. But of course, Kenny's so big that you don't want to waste him on Collision, so we don't want to do that either. But Okada could definitely fill that role on being on the Collision champion. And I think if you did kind of a softish brand split, I think that would work. The other titles I don't think matter. They can go wherever on the brand. SRS from Fightful has this theory he's mentioned before, and he's talked about how he thinks the Trios Championship should be united with the six-man type of titles in ROH and turn into the World Six-Man or World Trios or whatever and defend it on both AEW and ROH. And in the same way that they're talking about this new national title is how that title should be defended. Same thing with the women's title, that the women's title should be defended AEW, ROH, New Japan, AAA, not AAA, CMLL as well. I think either of those would have been great ideas because here's the thing. In AEW, yes, you have those titles. Alone, that wouldn't be that bad. It's when you start factoring in the ROH aspect that it becomes weird because then you got a whole different set of championships almost equal over there. So you got, gotta look it up. But over there you have the ROH World Champion, who is Bandito. ROH TV World, the ROH TV Champion. Another one of those things where the TV Championship is the secondary championship, which is Nick Wayne, who's hurt. So you're not even seeing that title. Pure Championship, Lee Moriarty, which is big. So you got 3 championships there. You got your World Tag Team Championships. You got your 6-man championships. You got your Women's World Championship. You got your Women's World Television Championship, which she's hurt. So Mercedes is like the interim Women's World Championship. So technically you have 2 of those, but Rev was hurt. And soon they've announced, I don't know when it's happening, but I heard them announcing it and it's listed on here of the Women's Pure Championship. So you got 3 Women's Championships there, 2 Tag Team Championships, again, 3 Men's Championships. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, eventually 8. So that's 8 more championships. Athena's on AEW TV a bit more. Mercedes holds this women's the television championship for the women. So she has both mid-card titles. Kind of the same way Joe did at one point in time. But it's different because Mercedes has a bunch of belts. It's just another belt and a thing. STP is not on Dynamite, not on AEW much. Nor are La Passion, LFI. Basically, I'm not going to Inconable. So like a lot of these people, it still pop up and defend their title on AEW TV. I heard, I don't remember who it was, but it was the idea. Maybe it was MVP talking about being on the Indies, and he goes backstage and like everybody has a title, and it's kind of that thing like if everybody has a title, what makes the title special, right? I've seen people say like it's not the amount of titles, it's how you book them. That's a thing too. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I will maintain judgment. I will retain my judgment until I see, how it plays out. But this is one of those few times that I heard that announcement and I was like, what and why? Why are we doing that? Why do we need another title? Book the titles you got. I promise you, I have at no point, like, some of these titles have been on people too long as is anyway and need to move. So at no point have I asked for, or anybody asked for this to be a thing. Hangman, he's still in his reign. I'm cool with that for a while. Okada, I'm cool with that, but I think Takeshita needs to beat him for that title. And I can wait until that happens, but that needs to happen. Kyle Fletcher, he's in the middle of his reign, so I'm cool with him. Being a Rodito, fairly new in their reign, I'm cool with that too. Ops could lose, even though they just turned heels, so that kind of revitalizes where they are with those championships. Because there were heel teams that I wanted to see them lose them to. Would have enjoyed Hurt Syndicate, but I kind of figured they wouldn't do that with MVP. He's not. I don't think he's going to be wrestling regularly, so that wouldn't make sense. And I don't know. I'm sure there are other trios coming, but again, I think they're probably more ROH. So I don't know. Women's division. Stat. I know people were thinking Tony. It was time for Tony to lose, and losing to Stat, I think, was definitely the way. So, she's fine. Mercedes. I'm not going to say it's time yet. I want to see where it's going. But it's not time. Mercedes is still money. I think she's going to own 2025. And then 2026, we see the downfall of Mercedes. I'd imagine. Can't go on forever. So, I don't know, man. And in saying that about the title, I kind of skipped over who. I don't know who I was in the gauntlet. The only people they kind of advertised or mentioned would be in it were Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and Ricochet, which kind of continues the Demand versus Hurt Syndicate story. They used it for that. But they didn't announce who else would be in the match. Of course, they never do. But those three people are announced to be in it. I'm curious if either of them, of those three, would win it. Because I don't even know who else could win or should win. Should you strap up Lashley in anything other than the world title? Because that feels like where he should be, if I'm being honest, up against Hangman. Maybe you put it on Ricochet. If we're talking about it's going to be defended against throughout brands, New Japan Strong, ROH. Feels like it should be kind of a mid-card-ish kind of guy, but somebody who's going to actually go to ROH. I don't see Lashley on ROH. Or Shelton, really. Maybe Shelton could, but I don't know. Nor Ricochet. So, again, I'm not sure who. I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be. The Casino Gauntlets are always good. But, just. I'm not sure. But hey, that's my spiel. We're going about an hour. That's my spiel. I don't even have anything else, man. Support the channel. Support the Black Fitness Network. Support Talmbout Wrestling. Support What's Up Wednesdays. Manifesto Mondays will return. I'm actually looking into maybe changing up how I do Manifesto Mondays going forward. I have some different ideas. That's for my music heads out there. If you want to, if you heard those, they're available now. Not on YouTube and not on Spotify yet. Right now they're just on Substack. I will eventually make those available. And again, I'm just thinking of possibly changing up the format on how I do them. And I have some different ideas for maybe either season 2 or season 3, depending, that don't that kind of expand the format a little bit. So again, if you have enjoyed, again, thank you for that. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, a wrestler, tell anybody you can, because every person counts. Every person counts. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for rocking with me all this time. Again, like, share, subscribe, comment, engage, 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 engage. Right. That is deliciously tropic. Yeah, engagement, engagement, engagement is the key. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Talking About Wrestling right here on the Black Fitness Network. I am your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. And as I always say, you know what? I should, well, whatever. It's too late now. And as I always say around this time, we are out.